I'm Preeti. I'm the registered migration agent, and today we are going to talk about the state and regional nomination process. Basically, this will be for Western Australia. The requirements and all the eligibility criteria, at what points is the applicants being invited, and everything will be covering in this session today. I would really appreciate if you all could just write your questions in the chat box, and in the end of the session, I'll be taking it one by one, all the questions that you have just written it over here. So to start with, so the first thing I would like to start with is that the state nomination process is a part of a general skilled migration visas. That is basically, we have got three kind of visas which comes under the points test system, which is subclass 189, 190, and a 491. The detailed session about the WA state nomination is going to cover your subclass 190 and a 491. 189 is an independent one where everyone does not need to have any points from the state. They just need to have all of their points by themselves, and they have to be, it's very competitive. Having the points in the 189 is not that easy. That's why everyone looks forward for the 190 or a 491 state nomination criteria. However, for the 2022-23 migration planning levels, the skilled independent, which is the 189, has been increased a lot. From 6,500, the seats has been increased to 16,652. That's an increase by 10,000 seats, which is a lot. So in the last financial year, all of these seats on the 189 invitations, they were basically for every quarterly they were doing it. But now looking into the number of seats that they have it, we expect that the state nomination, the 189 skilled independent should be even on the monthly basis and should come down at a bit of a lower points for the more of the popular occupations or for the critical occupations. For state and territory nominations, that has been increased by 8,800, which is again a lot, and which will be divided amongst each state, the equal number of, maybe divided upon the quota that the each states are going to get in. Regional visas, that covers the 491 or the 494, has been also increased by 13,800 seats, which is a lot. And in the total, they have increased for the skilled migration is 32,000 seats. When we talk about the Western Australian state nomination, it is open to all candidates who are living in Western Australia or interstate and are offshore. So, and then further, the state nomination is divided into two streams. There's a graduate stream and a general stream. And these further streams has got a three occupation list, which is the Schedule 1, Schedule 2, and a Warsaw. Now, there are the separate requirements for each of these ones. Like for a graduate stream, you need to have at least 2 years of study for WS in Western Australia only. And for general stream, you do not need those study. But then there is a difference amongst the occupation lists also. So we'll take these streams and their occupation requirements in the next slides. The first, we'll talk about the state nomination for the graduate stream. The graduate stream requires that the applicant must have studied in Western Australia for 2 years. And that could be at any study. It could be an English, 2 years of an English that you have done for an ALI course, or you have done a PhD for 2 years, doesn't matter. As long as it is a 2 years of a study, you are eligible under the graduate stream. There is no subject to the Section 48 bar. Now, all the states and they all have lifted up the Section 48. So even if you have got a visa refusal and you are invited by the state, you can still lodge your applications. For WA state nominations, we generally prefer that the applicant must be onshore. And the offshore ones, if they are invited, they will be invited at a bit of a higher points. English requirement is minimum 6 or 7, depending upon an occupation. All the trade occupations are the ones which do not need a 6. Otherwise, the Occupations which are managerial, minimum needs 7 each in English. For example, all the engineering occupations, or which comes in ENSCO level 1 and 2, they must have 7 each. Even if there's no requirement for the 189 or for the point system to have that, but if you do not, if you have got a managerial occupation and you don't have a 7, you cannot be invited. You need a full skills assessment. Provisional assessment is not accepted. You need a post-study 6 months work experience or a 6 months full-time contract. Now, the details about what type of a contract you need, I would be covering it in the next ones. And the occupation must be in a Warsaw list. As I said, that there are 3 kind of lists. The Warsaw list has got the most number of occupations, and they are for the graduates. So they have for the current financial year 2023, WA have already announced and have increased the number of occupations in the list, and we talk about all and every occupation which is in the STSOL. Most of them are covered by this. So all major occupations for the trade or engineering or IT or accounting, they all are here. And in the past, WA has been giving these invitations at as low points as 65 also. Doesn't matter whether the occupation was an accountant or was a chef. How WA invites the person. It is not on the basis of how many points are you having. It is basically on the basis of what is the highest qualification that you have completed in Western Australia. The applicants with the master's degree or the PhD will be invited in the first, and then comes the honors or other degree, then the bachelor's, then they look into the work experience, then English, and then come the points. So let's say that I have got 65 points and there's another applicant who has got 65 points or maybe 80 points, but I have done a master's degree and the other applicant has done a bachelor's degree in Western Australia. The applicant at 65 points will be invited. So it doesn't matter how many points are we having when it comes to the ranking system of Western Australia. It matters more about what is the highest qualification that you have obtained in Western Australia. Now we talk about the general stream, Schedule 1. Now, Schedule 1 occupations is basically for the people who are living anywhere in Australia or even offshore also. It's open for everybody. For this one, applicant must have a full skills assessment. Whether they are living onshore or offshore doesn't matter. The requirement of an English remains the same. Whether if it is a managerial occupation, you need 7, and if it is a trade, you need 6. But in addition to this, the occupations which are in Schedule 1 also need to have 1 year of an Australian experience or 3 years of an overseas experience. So what does this mean? That in your expression of interest, your occupation must have the points for the experience, whether it can be an onshore experience or an offshore experience. The 5 points that we claim must be in an expression of interest if your occupation is in the Schedule 1. The major occupations for the Schedule 1 is all relevant to the medical occupations. So they are not the very popular ones. And nursing is one of those, which is more importantly. So if you're an interstate nurse and you have a 1 year of an Australian experience or 3 years of an overseas experience, then you can apply. Whether you are living in Western Australia or not doesn't matter. You can apply for the WA state nomination. Once state has invited you, after that you would need a 12 months of a full-time contract in Western Australia. When the state invites you, they give you 28 days to accept the invite and further provide the employment contract. So this was about the general stream, Schedule 1. Now we have got another stream, which is the Schedule 2. Now what's the difference between the both is you still need The applicant can be onshore, offshore. You still need your full skills assessment. However, there is no work experience requirement for a Schedule 2. There are about a lot of applications, sorry, a lot of occupations which are under the Schedule 2 also. So basically, if you are interstate or you have not studied in Western Australia, your occupation is in the WA list, all you need is 12 months of an employment contract. So if you are an accountant or you're an engineer or you are an IT or you are into the trade occupation, they all are in the Schedule 2 list. And in past, applicants as low as 65 points have also been invited, or recent invitations have gone at 80 points, including the state, sorry, 90 points, including the state points also. So, but these are for the ones who were not living in Western Australia. If you come and if you are living in Western Australia, the points requirement could come down for you because the priority will be given to the one who are living in Western Australia. So I would just go along with again about the state requirements for the general stream Schedule 2. It is same for a 190 or a 491. They do not they make a difference between that. If it's a 491, there's no contract requirement. People do come and say that, can I accept a 491 and not have a contract? There's no such things. It is just on the basis of at the what minimum points you have received you have lodged your expression of interest. If you have lodged both expression of interest for 190 as well as for 491, then then it is all good. So what they will do is they will invite you on an EOI on which you have got a higher points. So definitely the 491 will be having a higher points as compared to the 190. So even if the minimum points have gone, what you were having in your 190, they will still just invite you for a 491 because you have got a higher points in that EOI. So when you're lodging your expression of interest for WA, and you have to make your decision whether you want to be invited for a 491 also, or you only need a 190. If you are at a bit of a higher points, which is, I would say, if you are including the state points, you're sitting somewhere between 85 or 90, do not lodge your expression of interest for 491 because the requirement in the end is the same. You need to provide a 12 month of a job offer. And if you have got both the UIs, you will be invited only for a 491 where you have got the chances of launching your 190 and receiving an invite for a 190 also. So it is a very calculative decision when you're lodging your expression of interest, whether you should be lodging both EOIs or you should only be lodging a one. It depends upon an occupation. It depends upon how many seats are there. It depends upon what was the minimum cutoff for that one. So make a right decision about it because you could be just jeopardizing your requirement or your chances of receiving a 190 invite when you could have or you might receive just a 491. Another tip is for the graduate stream. Graduate stream, we are just seeing that even the occupations at the very minimum points also at the 65 have got a very high chances of receiving the invite because the graduates are the ones who have studied in WA. They are given the opportunity to to be invited first. They need 6 months of an Australian experience. So, for example, I have done, let's say, accounting, and I moved to Victoria. I have got an Australian experience for 6 months. I'm working there. I don't have a contract for WA. I couldn't find a job here. It's fine. You do not need to have an experience for the graduates in Western Australia. It can be an Australian experience, or if you have got a contract, then you don't have to show that you have an experience. So you need to meet one of the requirement for that category. For the graduates, they must have studied 2 years full-time face-to-face. So we do receive a lot of inquiries where they say that if we do the online courses, living in Victoria, can that be considered? That's a gray area. If the course has been offered only online and it is not offered um, uh, at the campus, then it can be considered. However, when the state invites you, they wanted a proof that you're living in Western Australia. That could be one of your utility bill or could be your phone bill or anything. So you need to provide that one in any ways. So if you're doing an online course, which is only offered online, then eventually you have to move to show that you have been living in Western Australia, if your EOI states that. How they prioritize? The first priority is to the ones currently living in Western Australia. Whether it's a Schedule 1, Schedule 2, or WASOL application, whether it is a general stream, whether it is a graduate stream, doesn't matter. You will be, if you are living in Western Australia, you will be prioritized. Then the ones currently residing in interstate will be given second priority, who have completed their studies from Western Australia. So if you are an accountant, you have studied in Western Australia, you have moved to overseas or to another state, then they will be given a second priority. The third one is given to the offshore candidates. Again, in the offshore also, if someone has studied from WA, will come into this second priority again. Ranking hierarchy for a graduate stream, again, it's the PhD or the master's qualifications, then the honors, then the bachelor's. So if everybody is sitting at the similar points, then it is being looked into that what is the highest qualification that is being obtained by the applicant. Now, I would be talking about some FAQs, which are very common for the state nominations. So can you submit the expression of interest as soon as I started to complete my studies? Yes and a no, because if you have got a skills assessment based on your studies, yes, you can. If your assessment needs a 1 year of an experience or any number of years of an experience, then you need to have an assessment first and then can lodge your expression of interest. We have got a lot of applicants where they have completed their studies. Their skills assessment does not need any experience. We apply for an expression of interest, and before even lodging for a temporary residency, which is of TR or a 485 visa, we applied for a 190 or a 491 straight away because they had an expression of interest and meeting rest of the criteria for to be invited by the state. So you could always skip the queue and could do that if you're meeting your requirement of a skills assessment, which is mandatory. I'm subject to section 48 bar. I'm still eligible. Yes, you are. What requirements do I need to meet when claiming at least 6 months of a work experience? So for an undergraduate stream, when you apply and you say you have got 6 months of an experience, then you need to provide your employment reference letter, giving your start date or an end date, along with your 6 months of pay slips. And this needs to be just minimum 20 hours. You do not need to have a full-time 6 months experience. And this can be 20 hours, but need to be in your nominated occupation. It cannot be or can be closely nominated occupation also. The experience needs to be an Australian experience, does not need to be a WA experience. If I get an invitation for 491 first, will I still have a chance to get another invite for 190? And yes, and that's why I say, so if you are invited for a 491 and you were having the chances for the 190, you can still be invited. Make sure when you're lodging your expression of interest, these are into the separate EOIs. You don't lodge into the same EOI, because when they are inviting, they invite as per the number of an EOI number. That's the one which is invited. not the applicant. So if you have lodged your 491 and 190 in the same EOI and you are invited for 491, then you will not be invited for 190 because you have your EOI has already been invited. Okay, so make sure when you are lodging the EOIs, you are lodging two separate EOIs for two separate ones. If you think that you do not have a chance of receiving an invite for 190, otherwise don't lodge if you have got a high chances or you're sitting at a higher points. How much money do I need to show as a settlement cost if I live outside Australia? So you have got to show $20,000 as a settlement cost that you have it. This does not need to be any 6 months old or 1 year old. Even if you have just transferred that money and it is just a recent money sitting in your bank account, you only have to show the balance and that should suffice the requirement. If I get an invitation for nomination, but is unable to process ahead due to some reason, will the lapses of the invitation affect my future chances of getting invitation? An applicant can be invited any number of times as long as they are eligible for and have meet the deemed requirement. So if you are invited and you do not meet the requirement, you do not accept that invite, even if you accept and you still cannot provide all the documents, or you have been refused, you can still lodge another expression of interest. There is no requirement that you have to wait for 6 months or 2 months or 3 months. You can still lodge another expression of interest and you will be deemed invited if you meet the requirements of the next invitation round also. Because sometimes what happened, the current round would have gone at 65 points. The next round has gone at to 85 points and you were sitting at 75, then you will not. But if it will be other way around, then yes, you are. What are the requirements of an employment contract? The employment contract under the graduate stream needs to be for 6 months. For general stream needs to be for 12 months. It has to be full-time. Full-time means 35 hours per week. Can be from one employer or two employers. One employer can give you 35. There are two. One give you 20 hours. Another give you 15 hours. So two part-time contracts can also make it. And it has to be in your closely related occupation. The employment contract must have got your job title, the start date within the next 3 months, as well as how much salary is being offered. The key points is 35 hours or a combined contract in your closely related. The employer must be in WA. So what does this mean is, if I have got an employer where the head office is in Sydney and they have got one another location or a deputation for you, they're deploying and you will be working, your place of working is going to be Western Australia, then you are meeting a requirement. So, for example, a Sydney office for an accountant, and they have got another shared office here, you're fine as long as you can show your location of work in Western Australia, even if the head office and all other offices are in the other interstate or outside Australia, doesn't matter. The market salary rate is also important, that the applicant must be paid the minimum market salary rate, so which is somewhere around $50,000 to $53,000 and can be varied by different occupations also. Independent contractor is not acceptable. So your employer can be a sole trader, which is fine, but he must be offering you a position as an employee. You cannot be offered a position on an ABN. It must be on a TFN. I've made some few case studies for this. When the JB got an invitation for 190 under a general stream, Schedule 2, he submitted a 12-month independent contractor agreement with the state. The agreement clearly mentioned the job title, the employment commencement, this and everything. However, there are no leave entitlements. So that's the thing. Why the employment contract is not viable with an independent contractors, because leave entitlements are important. in a contractor, there are no leave entitlements, and that is very important for this one. That's why we need to have a contract as an employee. So proof of current residence, that's a very important thing. So Emily usually resides in Sydney. Considering candidates who resides in WA will be given first priority. She declared in her EOI that she is living in Western Australia and provided a WA postcode in the EOI. When she got invitation for stay, she moved to Perth and rented a room here. So you get 28 days. If you've got an intention of moving to Western Australia, you can probably maybe put in your EOI that you are living it here. And when before you are accepting an invite, you need to move here and get something like your rental agreement or your utility bill for that month. It can be as recent as when you are invited, and that will be fine and can be accepted for the state nomination. So for the other states, there are still to be announced the state nomination criteria. WA was the first one to announce for 2022-23. So stay tuned for those ones, and we will be conducting the seminars onto those ones also, or the live sessions. In case the applicant is not able to make the permanent residency through the WA stream, or their occupations are not in the list, then there are other ways to get the permanent residency, which is the employer-sponsored visas, which is the 186. Applicant needs to have 3 years of an experience and need to have an employer who is happy to sponsor and would need a skills assessment. Then there are the 482 visas, which are the temporary skilled visas, which is applicant needs to have the 2 years of an experience and then can be further sponsored for a PR after working with the same employer for 3 years in under a 186 TRD. For a 494, you need a 3 years of an experience. It's a provisional permanent residency and need to work with your employer also for the next 3 years so that your employer, and then you get a 191 visa and you need a full skills assessment for those ones. So these are, so in case you are not able to get your occupation in any of the list, or you do not have any state nomination criteria available, then there are the employer sponsored ones also. There are a few Dharma options are also open, which is quite good at the moment and quite popular, where the occupations which are not in the state lists, they are being getting invited also under Dharma. I'll be taking the questions from the chat room now. And the question is from Dinesh. What are the requirements for plant mechanic for 190 or the best option? What are the chances for a childcare group leader? Okay. So for the plant mechanic, if you are, depending upon your skills assessment, if you have got your skills assessment for a 190, this occupation is really good and you could be considered for the state nomination. For a childcare group leader, this is not in any of the occupation list of the state. This comes under the 494 or under the Dharma, and you need to have an employer to be sponsored for this one. Now from Dhamik Patel, what is a good chance for Baker at 65, 70 points in 190 and 491? Also got job offer in bakery, moving soon in WA. Dhamik, if you will be living in WA, then your chances at 70 points under the general stream is good. You could be considered. If you have got 65, 70 points of your own and you are adding the state points, you should be lodging your EOI for both 190 as well as for 491. And after moving, the chances of within 3 to 4 months to receiving an invite is quite high. Issue. I'm currently studying bachelor's in telecommunication engineering. If I'm moving WA after completing degree, what are the requirements and study requirements? Ish, as I said, if you have started your study in some other state, you need to finish that, get your skills assessment from Engineers Australia. You can move here and your requirement will be just for having a 12-month of a contract and 7 each in English. You do not need any experience to meet the state requirements. WA state has invited the engineers living in WA under a general stream at minimum 70 points also. So if you get your points between 70 to 80, you will be fine to receive an invite. Now, the next one is from Santa. I'm working as an accounts officer in Melbourne. I have around 1 year experience as an accounts officer. Please advise, should I move to WA? Santa, now if you have got your full skills assessment as an accountant is under a general list of Western Australia under the Schedule 2. So you would be needing a 12 months of a contract to be invited. The points in the previous rounds have gone up as 80 or 90. So as long as you have got these many points, including the state point, and have got a 12 months of a contract, I would highly recommend to move to Western Australia. Now, all my friends, we need to understand that WA is the only state where the requirement is finishing at the contract only for the interstates if you have not studied in that state. Any other state would need you to first work at least for 6 to 12 months before receiving an invite. And at the lowest points also, I have seen WA has been inviting. So I would say that the chances, the way WA is inviting the candidates, we have never seen these many invites at such low points. So definitely moving to Western Australia, if your occupation is in a general list, is a very good option. And if you but however, if you do not move to Western Australia, you're still living in interstate, you still have got the chances, but then you need to be at a very high points of 90 or 100. But if you've got a lower points than this, and your occupation is in the WA list, you should consider for moving to Western Australia and looking for a contract. The contract is important. If you move here and you do not have a contract, then there is no point. I'm working as a junior accountant in Sydney. I have around 2 years experience as an accountant. Any chance of getting invited state nomination? I have got 95 points at present. I mean, if you've got 95 points, you must launch your expression of interest. And even if you're interstate, the chances could be you could be invited for a 491. However, if you move to WA, you could increase your chances up to the 190 also. All you need to do is although you have an experience of 2 years, you would still need a 12 months of a contract, because that is only for the graduate streams where you need an experience or a contract. For a general stream where you are fitting in, you would need a contract also. When will invitations from Visa 190 be sent out in WA for this financial year? We are hoping this to be the round for this year, for this financial year to start in the 3rd week of July. And let's see whether they will still start in July or in August. Last year, WA skipped the round in July, did not have any invitations in July, and had the first round in August in the last financial year. Can we ask about current visa applications that I have lodged? Sorry, I didn't understand your question, Gopika. Which occupations are considered as the closely related occupation for mechanical engineer? SP. SP for mechanical engineer, production and plant engineer is the closely related occupation, or an industrial engineer is also with the ones. So if you have to look for the closely related, the fundamental for that one is that the first 4 digits of an ENSCO should be the same, and the last 2 digits keeps changing. So your mother code of an ENSCO remains the same, like for a production engineer and for a mechanical engineer or an industrial engineer or a production and plant engineer. Only the last 2 digits changes, the first 4 digits remains the same. Does mining engineer considered as closely related? No, but mining is not related as a closely related as a mechanical, because if you see the first 3 digits are the first 3 digits are only the same, not the 4 for an ENSCO. Manpreet Singh, can I get recording of the webinar as I just joined now due to technical glitch? Yes, sure, Manpreet. This will be uploaded in the YouTube also, and you can hear these seminars there. Harsh, hi, I'm a mechanical engineer. I studied in New South Wales and I have 12 months job offer from WA. So which category is best for me in WA? Harsh, you are only eligible for the WA under the general stream, schedule 2. So that's the only category available for you. And if you already have a job offer, you must lodge your expression of interest. Try to move to Western Australia to increase your chances of receiving an invite. Ramesh, when to expect for other states? Other states should be announcing their criteria very soon, hopefully within this month. We have got an upcoming sessions about the Queensland and Victoria, and there's a link for that, as well as for Tasmania, which is 3 to 4 p.m. today, and I would highly encourage to join those sessions, please. Urvish, and is WA best state for nominated visa for accountants? Look, yes, I would say. And the reason is that the accountants are the ones who really struggles in other states. In other states, there's a requirement of working there for minimum 12 to 18 months or maybe 6 months for few states, or you should have studied. W is the only one which is just on the basis of a contract can get you an invitation. And for a 491, accountants could be invited also. So yes. What are the chances of ICT security specialist at 80 points for WA? Under both the stream, under general stream or graduate stream, both 80 points is good and there are the chances. And then the last question, I got 80 points in ICT security specialist and recently moved to WA from New South Wales. What are my chances of getting an invite in WA? I got job offer as well. I'm planning to study community service, which starts in August. I need to lodge a separate UI for, yes. Yes, you have to lodge a separate UI for a 491 and 190. You're sitting at 80 points. I would recommend only to lodge your 190 EOI. You have got a high chances of receiving an invite, and it also depends upon the date of the lodgement of your EOI. Akashdi, currently living in New South Wales. Is it worth for me to stay in LSW for 491 Stream 3 developer programmer occupation with 75 points, including state, which make 90, or move to WA? Can you recommend any other state to move? It will be really appreciated. Now, Akashdeep, 90 points just for a 491, I would say if you have got 90 points and you move to Western Australia, you get a you have got high chances of receiving an invited developer programmer. But you have to make sure that you get a job offer, because if you move from New South Wales and you couldn't find a job offer, because getting an invite in WA will not be hard. But if you couldn't find your job offer, then you're losing your chances of NSW, as well as you could not get anything for 190, because you will get an invite but not get approved. So before moving, I would say you should work on your contracts if you are meeting any requirement of the state where you are currently in. Because in New South Wales, you are meeting the criteria for a 491. However, if you move to WA, you can be considered for a 190. So, but you do not want to lose your chance for a 491 just in case for a 190 if you do not find a contract here. So look for a contract. If you are able to get that contract, then you can be looking towards moving to WA, because then you will not regret for doing that move. Next question is from Manoj Kumar. What are the chances for primary teacher offshore with 10-year offshore experience with 90 points? Manoj, yes, 90 points should be good for the offshore, but there should be a wait for 3 to 4 months. The initial rounds, which are going to happen, we will see first will be prioritized to the WA graduates, then to the interstate, and then goes to the offshore. So you must lodge your 491 also. Yes, sir. Which state is promising to be considered for a lawyer from India to get relocated to Australia? The first thing for the lawyer is the skills assessment. You need to get your skills assessment with the supervisory practice, and whatever state you will be choosing will depending upon, yes, how would be you be meeting your state nomination requirements accordingly. Atul, an overseas applicant which is given higher priority for and family sponsored or state nomination. These are completely two different rounds. Family sponsored is considered by the federal government, and state nominations are considered by the state. Family sponsored goes at a very competitive high points with, however, for the state, you have to meet the straight criteria. My sister is citizen in WA. How can I get benefit? My occupation is vocational education teacher. I have 8 years of experience, but now the college is closed in June where I was working. If I enroll in PR now, will I get any difficulty? So, Manpreet, are you currently living offshore? Because if your sister is citizen, she can only lodge an expression of interest. You can only lodge an expression of interest for 491 family sponsored, and that's the only way. For a vocational education teacher, that's not in a 491 family sponsored list, so you're not eligible for that one. So you need to meet your own criteria for meeting the 491 or 190 state nomination. What chances of 491 invitation for network administrator offshore? 8 years experience, 8 band, 95 points. Switi, for an offshore candidates, I would say 95 points is okay for a 491, and you should launch an expression of interest. Look forward for your contract. Primary or early childhood teacher, on which list? They both are in the Schedule 2 as well as the WA Skills Occupation list and the Warsaw for the graduate. And the points I would say is 80 for the graduate, 80 points for general list and 65 for the graduate list. Dilip, I'm with mechanical engineer assessment, 75 points, including state. What are the best options? I'm living in regional NSW, moving to WA is good. Yes, Dilip. If you have got 75 points, including state, so is that for a 491 for a 190? If it's for 190 and then you're sitting at 85 points and moving to WA, within the first 3 to 6 months of moving, you guys should receive an invite. What is the average of points invited for civil engineer through graduate stream? Civil engineers have been invited at 65 points if you have a master's degree, or 75 points if you have got a bachelor's degree. Prince, hi ma'am, is there any chances in Dharma in WA as retail supervisor? I have experience of 3 years. My study is postgrad mechanical engineering. Dharma, yes, in WA retail supervisor is in the Pilbara region as well as the Southwest region. And if you have got a 3 years of an experience, you should be looking for an employer who can sponsor you under Dharma. I have just finished, Sachin, I've just finished master's in IT software engineering from Melbourne. What are my chances? Sachin, what are your points? If you have got the points which are about 80 and above, including the state, and you could find a contract, then yes, you should be moving to WA. How about civil engineer? Is WA a good option? Then NSW, depending upon your points and the contract. Because for NSW, you must be living over there and it is quite competitive. However, and it should have work experience. However, for WA, 80 points, including the state, is good. And if you get a contract, very high chances. Ram, I have finished my skills assessment as a chef from Queensland. Should I have to move? You do not have to move depending upon your points. If you have got a higher point sitting at 90, 95 points, then you can stay there and wait for an invite. However, at the lesser points also, you will be having the first priority if you're living in WA. So if you move here, the chances of receiving an invite could be quicker as compared to the one if you stay there in your state. I already applied for 491 as a chef with 75 in 5 months. ago, currently living in WA, but graduate in Victoria. How long need to wait? So if you have lodged your EOI 5 months ago, so there were no invites after the until March. Just in April and May, they have got 2 rounds for the very limited seats. So that's why you have not been invited. Let the rounds reopen, and then you have got the chances of getting and receiving an invite sooner. When will the invitation start? Hopefully in the 3rd week of July this year. What is the average success rate of getting a PR when one is invited based on EOI, provided that he is able to furnish all documents? Look, when the case officer is looking into your application, it is all on the basis of what points have you claimed. If the points that you have claimed and you have got all the genuine documents, then the percentage of success is 100%. Why the officer will refuse an application when you are meeting the criteria? Is there any session for nursing, Anita? Yes, there has been session for nursing also. And they were in the day one, they were the sessions that already has been done. And you can look for the YouTube options for those ones. How about civil engineer stuff? We have already answered this one. How can I get a job offer, Switi? You have to look for an employer here, start speak to all your references here, and start applying for the jobs. Dharmik got job offer in WA, moving in 2 weeks, working as a baker. Is that a good chance to be invited at 65, 70 points? Dharmik, if you've got 65, 70 points, yes, moving to WA is very important for you, because if you are interstate, you will not receive an invite, but you need to wait for 3 to 4 months before you get an invitation. Overseas chemical applicant, having 90 points in 491, wait time for my EOI. 3 to 6 months, Atul, you need to wait before you receive an invite. SP is 70 points, good for mechanical engineer to move, long-term prospect to get an invite for. If you've got 70, which means 80 points for living in WA, yes, you have got prospects of receiving an invite in WA. And you do not need a 6 months, you would need SP, you would need a 12-month of a contract, because you have not studied in WA. Mahipal Singh, at what points accountants invited excluding state points? So excluding the state points, and by accountants under the general stream, in the last 2 months, they were invited above 85, and the months before they were invited at 75. After doing Masters of Teaching, what is the best pathway for getting a PR? You would need your skills assessment from your AITSL. You can look forward for a 189, 190, 491, all the options. And if you are thinking of moving to WA, which is in the WA list, you would need a 12-month of a contract. Nancy, hi ma'am, I got WA nomination and applied further. I also applied for 190 for developers software. I'm client of Aussizz Group. When I get WA 190, my points 80 including state. Let's see, if you have already been invited for a 491 and you have accepted that and have applied further, now you can only be invited in the next financial year. So let's say that the 491 which you have accepted was in the last financial year before the 30th of June, then you definitely have got a chances to be invited for a 190 in this current financial year from the rounds which will happen from this month or next month onwards. And the last question is from Sumit. We just got it. If someone got invitation, got 491 invite, can he still got invite for 190? Yes, Sumit, as long as you have launched a separate EOI, not on the same EOI. If you have ticked both, then the invitation is on the EOI number. So you get one invite on one EOI. So you must launch separate EOIs, and then you will get an invite for 2 also, even if you have been invited for a 491. Now, everybody has to also this that once you have been invited, you have applied further, and your application has been approved, and you have received the link from the Department of Home Affairs to lodge your visa, then that is only one invite in one financial year. Then you can only be invited again in the next financial year. So this is only when all the process has been done and you are about to lodge your visa. But if you have received an invite, you did not move forward further, or even if you moved further, you did not receive the link to receive the visa to apply the visa, then you can still be invited for the in the same financial year also. If UI is not yet considered, will I still get a bridging visa? No, you get a bridging visa only after a lodgement of a visa application. No bridging on any UI. Prince, ma'am, can you please share the contact? Yes, please. So I am in the Perth office. So it's Preeti Puri and OH9221 3020 is our Perth office number. And you guys are more than welcome to call and book an appointment. The ones who have done these sessions, and if you can tag us for a shout out, then there is a 30-minute of a free consultation which we could do, and we could further discuss all your options for the any state nomination criteria. We have got more tuned in for more sessions. They are all with abundance of lot of knowledge, and you will really be very helpful with this. Thank you so much everyone for listening, and good luck for everyone.